Okay. So I was thinking, before I start, I was gonna make like a theme song. You guys could help me, yay or nay, the idea. So the name is Kuroneko Cake, right? So it's about black cat cake. I was thinking of having like cutesy, like bubblegum poppy, or maybe like just like these cute bells ringing. And then I would be like meowing in the background, like meow, meow, meow. And then like it would say black cat cake, black cat cake, black cat cake, or Kroneko cake. And then like it would go into metal music. It would build up, and there'd be like drumming and guitars. And then you start saying personality, psychology, like I think that would be really neat. And then it would loop a couple times, and then I'd start. Yeah, I think that's. What about having it all? Cakey. Yeah? Nobody calls me that though. Um, I either get called Kuro or Cake. Yes. I mean, I did like metal. Yes, it's Josh. You can say hi to a fellow JoJo. Oh, weird. Virtual meetings on a Twitch stream. Pleased to meet you, fellow Joe Bro. Yep. Oh god, it's getting bigger, the group. Were you really? Oh, that's nice. That's great that you were here. That's fantastic. You met the other ENFP and her Josh. Hmm. Well, her other half has an awesome name. Yeah, she's very cool. I actually do want to stream with her too. I don't know if you guys are hearing me or if the ads are just taken over. I don't know if mods get ads. Do you guys get ads? You can hear me? I don't. Loud and clear. Okay. Okay, so since it's just an audience of 3, which is awesome. Oh god. Sweating, nervous. Okay, so here's the disclaimer. Because of my background, I need to always share some type of disclaimer because there's ethics involved here with information. I just share because I like info dumping and sharing information. It's like the way I play with people, and it's very fun and creative for me. It's my form of play to make presentations. I don't know if anyone else plays like that, but that's how I have fun. So this is just your cute kitten disclaimer. It's shared information for educational purposes only. The thing is that sometimes people want to look for things to help them feel affirmed, but then the extreme that tends to come out of information on the internet is a lot of people start diagnosing themselves. And so I just want to repeat, I'm sure you already know, this is not a way to diagnose yourself or anything. I'm just sharing in terms of general information. I very much encourage critical thinking. You are allowed to disagree with everything that I say. You're allowed to challenge it. You're allowed to look up additional information. Oh my god, did you hear that? Did you hear the thing? I just got 5 gifted. Thank you. I hope the people can enjoy the special emotes that come with it. Thank you. It's a mushroom thingy. Yay, I know I'm trying trying to add things. It's very difficult. So back to the disclaimers. It's very much for educational purposes. And if you're a young person watching, I'm your auntie at the same time. I want you to take this in a way where you can look at the information over time. See how you grow as a person and know that just because you're like this now doesn't mean you'll always be this way. Some parts of you will stay, some parts of you will grow and change a lot. Just like how many as older people here, we will acknowledge the same thing. We grow, and sometimes we come back to who we have always been, depending on life experience. And so it's just for personal exploration, because my thing is always explore yourself, explore who you are, and knowledge is always empowering. Okay, so let's go. My topic today is going to be about how you take up space. I was thinking about this earlier because I work with a lot of sensitive people, whether it's just like a one-off thing or my lens of the world is, it's a lot about sensitivity. And if you're sensitive, you're most likely not always taking up space in a way that's healthy or promotes your personal identity. It could happen for different reasons, and so I'm just going to touch some of it. And I always recommend a competent therapist that you feel like a person who gets you, or even a coach, because this is not really about mental health. It's not about anxiety. It's not about depression. It's really about who you are as a person, and personal development can be in the scope of practice for a therapist or a coach. So just thinking about these things, because again, reflecting on who you are helps empower you as a person and how you navigate this world. So how do you take up space? These are some of the things I thought about when it comes to taking up space, because it could be an abstract or a concrete subject. People who take up space could be taking up space physically, socially, through communication, emotionally, personality-wise, relationally, or authentically. So what does it look like though? When I think of taking up space physically, the easiest thing you could think of is like a larger person or a person who has presence. Like if you're ever in the LinkedIn spaces, you have that thing called like executive presence or being a leader. I am a small person, but I have the energy of a very tall person. You know, I have a 6-foot lady energy, kind of. What people have told me, they've guessed that I'm taller. And so it depends on your sense of who you are and the way you just communicate and establish yourself in the world. Who's that? Who is that? I can't read. Hold on. Hi, Leroy. Hi, Leroy. My fellow Fortnite player. Let's go. So for physical space, it's about energy too. It's not just like concrete wise how large you are. So, you know, some larger people could take up less space just because of their energy. I've seen very mousy, very sweet, larger people. You know, you call them, what do you call it? Like a big teddy bear or a sweet person. Just because they're larger doesn't mean that they, in their head, in your mind, you might not think that you physically take up the space that you think that other people see you do. Yes, gentle giants. That's the perfect word for it. Thank you. And socially, this is about preference too, though. I don't want to push the bias that being a gregarious, networking extrovert is the ideal. I'm just saying that it's to think about for you. When you think about your social space, are you taking up the space that you want to? So it's about a want and preference yourself. Some people are going to the extremes, networking all over the place. And I've done that before where I burnt out. And really, networking in person is exhausting, but you have to play the game sometimes. But for me, I've kind of like figured out a way where internet, lurking in groups is really my way of being socially connected. At the same time, do you feel seen? Do you feel ignored? There are some people you would call like a background character, right? They don't have main character energy. And because of that, there's this question of, again, is it something you want to maintain or something you want to change? Just because you are small and don't have take up space, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing either. Some people prefer that, and it is a personal choice. So communication wise is a big one. And I'm going to go into it more later. It's like, what is that? Hey, Kuroto, first time chatter. Let's go. We're talking about taking up space. And this is also, Kuroto's a sweet person too. Super helpful, amazing human being. Very much like the leader, but also a gentle person. So the chat is full of gentle people today. You guys are really neat, like just flocking to me. Okay, anyways. So communication wise, you're talking about, am I expressing my needs or am I shutting myself down to allow other people to take up space and let their needs met too? You're not abrasive. Whatever. Squishy people in the chat. Let's go. So that's just part of it. It's, again, we're thinking about perception and thinking about how much space are you taking to communicate your wants, your needs, what's important to you in the spaces that you're part of. Emotional, in relationships, I always think about relationships because we are social animals. Emotionally, are you taking up space too? Are you taking up too much space? So like as someone who is an emotional person, I what do you call it? I admit and I take accountability for sometimes in the past taking up too much emotional space. And that's my own personal work to have worked through. At the same time, to be, realistic about there's sometimes in your life where you take up more emotional space, and then some people don't have the room to be emotional too. So it's like this constant relational pairing and observance of how much room do I have or allow other people to also be emotional? Is it overwhelming? And at the time of my life, is it something that feels safe to do so? So safety is a part of it too. Personality-wise, because I love archetypes and personalities, are you allowing yourself to show many parts of who you are? Because we have the persona, just like the game, we have one part of ourselves. We have many roles that we can put on. But if you're in a safer, authentic relationship or space of friends, you're feeling in a way where you can show many, many parts of who you are without feeling burdened or incorrect in some way. And that's paired with the relational and the authentic part of who you are. So I'm going to keep on going. So how is someone different? I jumped to this because in all those spaces that you may take up space, sometimes when you're perceived as different, this ability to take up space somehow unconsciously slowly gets chipped away at. And after a while, you become very, very small. I'm only sharing this because this personal experience of my entire life is I feel like I have been small. And so, let's see. The Foxglove says, I'm a friendly bear, soft and cuddly most of the time, but don't cross me or someone I care about. Yeah. And that's the ability to be versatile in who you are, not limiting yourself and seeing that you have the capability to flow between many states of being. That's wonderful. And that's really the goal for all of us. It's not limiting who you are because there are many possibilities. So when we're talking about how someone is different, these are just some things. But the big ones, like the ones that people tend to box themselves in, like race, language, communities, those are big ways people can be different, just depending on physical location too. But some of these things are, because it's my community and I very much have a big heart for, is the neurodivergent community, disabled, your gender. I talk about on Twitch because, video gaming is for everyone, but sometimes in certain games and spaces is very much a boys' club. I've seen some girls get picked on in the Twitch chats, and I kind of get, my anti-mode gets, turned on, activated, and I try my best to sometimes check them, but it's a very interesting dynamic where some of these things repeat of like, why are we still making fun of girls playing games? Like, wouldn't you want girls to play games? So anyways, sexual identity, being perceived as the black sheep, the sensitivity part of us, like a lot of us who are sensitive, emotional, feel rejected because you're so sensitive or misunderstood. And your interests, like a lot of us geeks here, we very much may feel like we're not understood or we're so different because we like something quote unquote too much. I've seen people say like, oh, this type of interest is okay, but if you like this one, it's like you're weird. Like, why are you going into this? The big one I hear about, like sometimes people make fun of furries. But anything else around that, like, or close to it is okay. So there's this like spectrum of what's okay, what's kind of weird, but then when you get into too weird, you're now rejected because you have this perception that there is paired with something being wrong with you instead of just like you have your own range of interests. So I wanted to look stuff up because I know some people throw out these words and they're like, what does this mean? So rejection sensitive dysphoria is just a term used for a common thing that neurodivergent people experience. So it's paired with ADHD, but I'm going to say it's a very common umbrella experience for neurodivergent people if you're different in some way. So dysphoria, I know, happens for people who have gender dysphoria, right? You're in the wrong body and you just feel so uncomfortable that it leads to turmoil inside your body. You feel sometimes, so I'm going to throw out this like mental health term, like suicidal ideation. It is that extreme of a discomfort where there's something off, and it's like the rejection that comes with being different or being perceived as different is so extreme. And that's where I would recommend the mental health care. Very, very important to find a practitioner that can support you through this very, very sensitive, vulnerable time of your life. And it's a common thing. So like if you feel like extreme swinging of like all of a sudden you feel rejected, perception or real. So it could be perceived rejection or real rejection. Someone says something about you, someone like laughs at your things that you like, or they make fun of you, or they make fun of your body for how you look, and you have it again and again. Imagine like that just ticking at your body or your mind. You feel like these people won't stop picking at you. You lose a sense of wholeness. You lose a sense of like, what is it that about me that's making me a target? Like people keep on targeting me, making fun of me. Like it is overwhelming. It's not just a one-time thing. It's a lifetime of experiences that accumulates, which is why there is a term for it. Because if you're different and people objectively notice that you are different, it sooner or later it does happen, and that's the sad part of being different. And we have, quote unquote, we live in a society where being different is not nurtured in a kind and supportive way. So if you are different, my heart goes out to you, because it is hard to navigate. It's like you do have to find your community, but while you're doing that, it fucking sucks. Like it hurts for a really long time. And so again, it looks like your let me see. Hold on. Ugh, my nose is always itchy. God, when I stream. Just knowing about this concept is helpful for handling it. It was harder before I knew about it. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Oh, hi, Olive. Yeah, there's these terms that I just like naming stuff. I like labeling the experiences that already exist to help people feel like I'm not crazy. This is a thing that actually happens. And so that means also there's probably research about it and or people where you can relate to it to feel, again, you have community, and then you don't have to defend who you are, your state of life. And there's probably some resources out there to help you improve on what's going on. And that's always the goal, to alleviate something, to make it feel better, to empower yourself. Like, yeah, I'm not alone. This is a thing. It happens. But in the beginning, it's intense. It can be very intense at times. So this is just a picture I picked about, like, I really wish it was like an anime. I use Canva. I try to find like, I pay for it. I will try to use pictures that express how I feel inside when I'm trying to depict these concepts. So I want to get my money's worth. So just look at the picture, okay? This is me. I pay for it. You could have used child Naruto. So I was going to. It's in my folder, but I don't know if I get in trouble. That's why I don't know how to navigate this stuff. Like for educational purposes, there's always like Creative Commons stuff, and on Twitch, really? Does it matter? It doesn't matter because I want to upload this stuff to YouTube too. So I don't know what the rules are for that stuff. But I paid for it. So here's my paid picture. Paid for all these damn images. Okay. So I think they'd only care about audio. Well, that's for Twitch, I know, but I'm just wondering about like images and stuff. Property. But I've seen people make, what do you call it? What is it? Commentary on anime and pop culture. I see people like quote unquote get away with it, but I want to attribute too, which is like, I don't know how to do for an anime snapshot. Anyways, free picture. I mean, paid picture. Next is, so here's the thing that's really neat too. I came across this article in like 2013 because it was like in the depths of my depression and I was exploring neuroscience at the time. So I'm not as much of a neuroscience buff now, but back in the day, that was like my jam. I loved the Norton series, neuroscience everything, and it was the theory that I thought I was gonna use in psychology, but it's not. But I learned a lot about it. So there was this article about why social exclusion and isolation hurts as much as being punched in the face or punched in the gut. And so this is just the abstract, but I just wanted to share it because that's how powerful and painful being ignored, rejected, rejected, or perception wise rejected feels like, because it's real. The receptors of the brain are the same things being activated. And so, like, that's the thing that people don't see when they look at someone having a hard time, when they're looking at someone struggling because they're different. You know, the loner who's walking around. So again, if you're a loner walking around, you may or may not understand or feel rejected or different. For those of you who do, so in the beginning I didn't, after a while I did. So like it's a flow of states, right? So for some of us who do feel that there's this painful, like visceral experience of like, why am I feeling so pained, you know? I grab stuff from the Library of Congress, generate AI images, or use Commons for images. Yeah, I mean, some of the images are pretty, some of them are not. I'm very picky with like the images I'm looking for. And I mean, the pool is never perfect, but there's a certain saturation of color and mood that I'm looking for with my images too. But the real thing, the big thing is I'm not sure if there's enough like pop culture images, like, you know, comics, video games, anime. If that were there in the pool, and I would happily take from it. So back to like the pain, there is very much a scientific basis to support that those of us who are different may feel a sense of pain that is accumulated over time, and that's terrible. It's a terrible thing. And for some people who just like, why can't you just get over it? Why don't you just be more social? Imagine having pain for 10 years, 15 years, like your whole life, or you know, big fraction of your life, all of a sudden, like 5-year window of time that people have been rejecting you for some unknown reason, like just because you are born the way you're born, or just like what you like, you know, or talk the way you talk. All of a sudden, you have this accumulation of pain. It's just like can become like a chronic pain, a chronic illness. Like it just hurts so much. And I just wanted to throw that out there because sometimes you don't know what's going on inside. And this could be, again, I'm not saying it is for everyone, but it could be a potential experience that you're going through if you feel misunderstood or rejected or made fun of for whatever identity that you belong to or have. Okay, so, and this is again too, I talk about perception a lot. Perception is the world. Perception is what you make of the world. At the same time, it's this dyad. We play around with our perception and then it gets thrown back at us or not from the world. Sometimes we are mirrored, sometimes we are not. If you are not mirrored in the world as a valuable person, that makes you see the world in a very different way. So even if you are like majestic and large, like a beautiful elephant, some people, you know, will see that, but you could be internalizing so much of this rejection and people making fun of you that you feel so small, you feel so powerless. Or it could be the other way around. You know, people could see you as a small person. At the same time, you could have, you know, majestic elephant energy. Who knows? But it's a very funny situation and very interesting to me that some people see certain traits in people and then you don't see those traits in yourselves. It's like the constant in life. We see certain things and when someone says it, you're like, are you for real? Like, you really think that about me? Hi, Lizard. Thanks for dropping by. I'm talking about perception right now. So for those of us who've maybe had histories of being sensitive and rejected, there is scientific backing to support that there could be pain involved in being rejected. And also, I'm just talking about like layering it with the perception of identity. So again, we could see ourselves a certain way and it could be incongruent because that's the whole lifelong process of learning who you are inside and out. Do you manifest the traits that you want to be seen, are only certain traits being reflected back to you. And that's the game. That is the whole game of life. It's the game of which community you're being in. Some people want to pull you down because they're projecting insecurities, whatever it is constant. And so it's, again, me naming these terms so you can be more mindful and just like checking who is mirroring me in a way that's very uplifting and empowering. Who sees the best in me? Who's being grounded and balanced? Who calls me out but also sees that I can grow too? Like, who cares about me in that way? Because there's this sense of love and support that you can have for someone, but you can enable them by not calling them out for the things that they need to do to grow too. So again, balance, balance, balance. Okay, so here's another thing about a trait thing too. So there's this chick, this lady named Elaine Aron. She is the grandma, the founder of the highly sensitive person identity label. There is kind of friction in the neurodivergent community and the highly sensitive person community, but in general, I think overall her contributions to personality and different types of people, you know, in terms of self-understanding is very important. One of the things that she's been researching is called the sensitive trait. So she researches it with her husband, and she writes a bunch of peer-reviewed articles, and there has been a finding for a sensitive trait. For me, it's another way of saying neurodivergent, though. And so that for me is like, I'm being now pushing buttons here because some people think it's two totally different things. Just the way that I see it, I see that neurodivergence and sensitivity are the same freaking thing. But some people think that, being a sensitive person is like, it's not bad like the term autistic or neurodivergent. You wouldn't want to be those things. So this for me is semantics. It's totally about games, the word game, the perception game. So you're saying that one word is going to be highly elevated as, oh, how cute, you're sensitive. But then it's like, oh shit, you're neurodivergent. That means something wrong with you. So again, it's about how we perceive language, how we perceive the terminology. Like, you're not the labels. I'm just giving you a framework to help you identify some of the things that could be happening so you feel like there's a structure to follow. That's all. There's no good or bad here. There's just traits associated with some of these labels for you to research on your own. You can throw it all away, throw it out the window. I don't care. It's just these things you could probably revisit over time, or just say, nope, it doesn't apply to me. I don't think it's true. And all valid ways to respond to information because you have a brain, okay? So this article is about dandelions, tulips, and orchids. And she kind of, again, because I do archetype systems and categories of personalities and people, she did 3 types of nervous systems and brains. So there's a dandelion type of brain or nervous system, a tulip type of brain or nervous system, and an orchid type of brain or nervous system. And so I just put 2 because these 2 are the extremes. So let's say you have a dandelion type of nervous system. You can grow anywhere. You see like dandelions growing in the concrete, like in the dirt, like anywhere. Like you just like, you stomp on them, they come back. Like they're proliferating everywhere. They have seeds all over the place. They will never die off. They're abundant, right? So there could be a type of person with a nervous system that is super healthy and resilient, just like the dandelion. Unfortunately, for some of us who are super sensitive, we are known as having a orchid type of nervous system and brain, which means everything makes us sensitive. We're just like, we're fragile, sensitive little snowflakes, and we get bruised easily. Things bother us. Things make us shut down and irritated. It is endless. So like all the sensory stuff, like, so sight, sound, touch, taste. Welcome to the club, fellow orchid. So like, it's this thing of like, everything makes you constantly drained because the sensations are being picked at and poked at again and again and again. And what happens with this kind of nervous system, it takes longer to bounce back. It is something that's misunderstood, which is why some of us, so not all of us, So some of us will kick into that fight, flight, or freeze response for things that other people might be like, that wasn't such a big deal. That was not something to provoke sensitivity. Why are you reacting this way? But because our nervous system is so over aroused, so sensitive, and so like, we're picking up everything, more nuance to detail than other people and brains, we're constantly drained because our brain is fully online. Everything is being attuned to. So a lot of sensitive people are also very creative people because the creative brain is looking for things like patterns and beauty, like artistic people, creative people, people who like fandoms, you escape into the cosplays and the video games. You're looking for the good type of stimulation, not just the stuff that drains you. So it impacts you even more, that sense of awe and beauty. So it's a good and bad thing. It's a spectrum. You got to find the balance for you. Because for some of us, when we're impacted with so much stimulation, we choose to withdraw often, which kind of gives us an additional label of like, oh, they're weird, they're different. It's like, well, I'm actually just trying to recover because I'm constantly drained and overwhelmed. Or I'm trying to hide from the rejection. I saw that facial expression. I saw the snicker. I saw someone make fun of me, right? The hard part is dealing with the expectations of dandelions. It very much is, Olive. The majority will always have control. So it's the tricky part of us to at least feel understood. Like, you're not crazy for not being able to live in a dandelion world or function 100% as a dandelion. We do have to be the chameleons. We do have to be the ones that are more fluid in identity. We are the ones who have like so many roles compared to the person who is a dandelion because they don't have to change. This world was made for them, It's sad to think about, but that's true, It's a very good point. The world of the dandelions. And we're just trying to find our place to thrive too. So these are some thoughts, possible themes that can come about if you are an orchid in a world of dandelions. If you're constantly perceiving rejection or having the sensitivity trait being activated, you could feel like, is there something wrong with me? Like, I'm so different. These people are functioning just fine, but there's something about me that I can't. Something about me where I have to keep on withdrawing. Or like, I like certain things, but the majority of the dandelions, they don't like the same things, right? So the foxglove is saying, yeah, I keep my dandelion suit by the front door. So happy when I hang it at the end of the day. Why am I like this? It's a scary, sad reason. I mask a lot too, the foxglove. Like, I put on my social hat. Like, if you need me to wow in a conference or networking event, sometimes I can do it. But if I'm burnt out, you'll see like I am grumpy. I will not put the mask on of being like, I'm in a good mood or like I have to please people to network. Like, if I'm grumpy, I'm grumpy. But back in the day, it was just easier to put the mask on, take it on and off. So you're saying why? Yeah, it's like, why am I like this? It's this perception of there's something wrong, right? Like, and then you want to seek why. So this is going to be a tangent because the question why is something that so I'm a coach, but I'm very well versed in the world of psychotherapy. So when someone tells me that they want to understand why, I put the brakes on it because this is a big part of learning who you are. So it's kind of similar to wanting a diagnosis. Like, I want to know what's wrong with me. I need a diagnosis. So if you go, and I know other therapists, if you ever watch this replay, you can chime in with your personal, like, professional opinion, but here's my take on it. If you want to seek a diagnosis in therapy because you need something to kind of comfort you, again, it's the label, but you're not the label. I want to make it very clear that it's a box to explain the symptoms that have formed to make you, does my sound still work? It's to make it clear that because of what happened in your life, these are the symptoms that we also see as the professional. It doesn't mean that this is all encompassing of who you are, because that's impossible. You're a complex human being with so many things that shape and define you. But this is just like the mental health component. And it's a ballpark, okay? It's never going to really take into account everything. Impossible. And over time, it could be a snapshot of you where in life you had more anxiety in this window of time. You might have had depression at this moment of time. And maybe for like your entire adulthood, you had PTSD. I don't know, like it's complex. And for some parts of your life, the symptoms come out more strongly than others because you're just learning to heal and live in a world made for dandelions, right? And so when it comes to like learning about why I'm like this, it's the same as having the label or the diagnosis. For me, it's like, I would love to name the whys. We can go backwards in time and name everything that contributed to what happened to make you like this, which is why it's very powerful to write a life autobiography with whatever themes that you want to have in it. I encourage it. Write your story, put images in it to illustrate important things that have shaped your life. But the thing is, depending on your emotional state, your mental clarity, that autobiography will change every time you write it, depending on what era of your life you're in, which is powerful too. So like if I had to write my life, I actually did for assignment in my 20s, it was very depressing. I wrote it again in my 30s, and it was very much more resilient and hopeful. So that's kind of like the take on why I'm like this. If you go back and write the whys or start looking for the whys, depending on where you are in your life, and if you go back and edit it, it would change. So what I did was I wrote these poems in my 30s, and like 5 or 6 years later, I went back and responded to the poems because I was talking to my younger self. And I think that was pretty neat to see that, oh gosh, this is what was important to me back then. And now that I'm older, looking back on my wounded self, I feel hopeful, and I wanted to comfort my younger version of who I was at that time. And so there's these things you can do, which again, it's not outside like the scopes of like therapy. It's just really personal development and healing, and it's very artistic, creative like. But the why, I keep on tangenting. So like the why. Once you figure out the why, let's say some major series of traumas happened or big life events happened or things that someone super powerfully impactful keeps on coming back into your theme. This one person is the one person that keeps on, shaping my life or my perception of life. What's going to happen after you name that? Like what do you do after you name the why? And that's the important part of being present oriented, or else we'll be consumed by the past. If you're constantly thinking about why you're like this, you are never going to live a life where you live right now and build a future that's different than the past, because you're going to repeat the past. If you're looking for the past and why the past repeats, you're going to repeat the past. Okay? So that's just like my caveat, kind of like an encouragement to balance both out. It's important to do both. We need to always know our roots and where we come from at the same time. We cannot be bound by it. There's always room for evolution. There's always room for something to change. Very powerful to think that way. So some themes that could come out from these rejections and the sensitive trait, being different, again, being the orchid in a dandelion world, is you do feel like maybe the majority's right. Like, obviously, there's more of them. We're outnumbered. Realistically, we are outnumbered. That was very insightful. You're welcome. I think about this stuff all the freaking time, and like, I just want to tell people. That's all I ever want to do. That's all I just want to talk about change processes and like shake people like, you can change. Sorry. You can think more for yourself. Thanks. Okay, so the themes, like for us, because a sensitive trait, most likely, are they right? Because again, numbers wise, there's more of them. We're just outnumbered. No one understands me. And it could become existential of like, who the freak am I? who am I? I don't know who I am because other people, they're reacting to me or they're ignoring me. They're making fun of me. You ever have people snicker about you or gossip about you? Like, it's a terrible feeling. I hate it. It happens. And like, just because you're different or you're authentic in your own way, people want to talk crap about you. And then it always comes back to you. But that's like the mean girl club. Anyways, it's just like, it can perpetuate certain themes, which is like, are they right to make fun of me? No one understands me. Like, am I the target? Am I the one they're going to make fun of and reject because it's fun to do so? Or like, that's just life, you know? And that's like, you start having the existential crisis of like, who am I if this is what life is? Because it's not fun. And then you may go towards even a terrible, terrible feeling of like, am I worthless? And I've been down that path for a very long time. I know what it's like. It is darkness, my old friend. And so I'm here to just share compassion that it is something that for those of us who have been there or are wrestling with the worthlessness right now, I feel you. And I have hope for you that you can fight through it. You can fight for yourself. You can get there. Okay, so my background is in family system psychology. Everything for me is systemic and connected. And even though my lens is family system psychology, I think very much about the individual and the person's place within the system that they're in, which is very complicated. It's beautiful. It makes my brain happy to think about the systems. So there's this energy and power that takes place, things moving around, things that make the system maintain itself or cause a little bit of needed chaos for change. That's how change happens. You need to insert a little bit of chaos. There's one thing that happens when you kind of look up Google, relationship advice or communication, conflict resolution. One of the terms that I see around often, even used in a lot of couples therapists, is the I statement. You talk about like, when you do this, I feel this way. Like you focus on yourself, because if you focus on the other person, they feel attacked maybe, or they feel like you're judging them. The energy is imbalanced. So in conflict, it's important to really make it objective and focus on yourself and your quote unquote subjective internal experience. But while you're doing that, no one can argue with you, or some people do, which is not the healthy form of communication and conflict. If you say that you feel a certain way, nobody should be, I'm saying should be able to say, you don't feel that way. You're just making it up. Like, no, realistically, in a healthy communication, you just honor how someone feels, even if you don't agree with it. That's just healthy friendship, love, care. So in Bowen family systems, it's called maintaining the I position. It's literally the same thing. Because this is what happens with your identity. Someone says something or does something. See, this part of why being in leadership roles was something I accepted and got used to. I learned that if I led and had power, people were more willing to accept my differences, or at least quiet about them. So when you say that, that's actually an interesting point. Power is important. I do pair archetypes with power, personal identity with reclaiming power. And so if you're a sensitive person who's just different in some way, it is this slowly leaching of power that the systems we belong to take away from us. It's this constant draining and become small, right? So there's the whole thing about taking up space. If you're different, people over time slowly took away your power and your voice. And you've become this small thing where you're just like, oh, let me show you this. Look at this cute little thing right here. So cute. It's a turtle duck. My friend Hope, I think she made it or her mom made it. Anyways, so like, that's the thing. Think about it in terms of power dynamics. Think in terms of energy exchange. It either fills you or it's draining you. And if it's draining you nonstop, you disappear as a human being. Literally no voice, no presence, nothing. And so the whole thing about taking up space is if you've been losing this sense of space for years, your lifetime, time to get it back. Like, how are you going to get it back? And the easiest thing to kind of shape it is this I position. So I pair this because I'm thinking about like, if people have told you that you're rejected, you're weird, you're different, That's them telling you who you are. Over time, you either stop talking about yourself and or you don't name what you want and you lose a sense of identity. So again, it goes all back to personal identity. Reclaiming space is talking about the things that you like, communicating what you want, talking about your wishes and your dreams, the things you don't like. Those are all boundaries with your voice, however you decide to communicate these things. But because we're so small, sometimes we get so quiet that we don't want to talk about ourselves because it's not worth it. It's too much drama. It gets complicated. People might snap at you, make fun of you. They minimize what you say. It is a long process, but over time it becomes this like, what's the point of me talking? No one's going to listen to me anyways, or they're going to make fun of me. Like, I remember I used to made fun of when I talked about certain things that I liked. And you know what happened? I withdrew to the internet because if I talk to the computer for a YouTube video, they're not going to make fun of me. Or at least in the comments, I can just like delete or whatever, right? But like for years, I had this dynamic energy exchange in the systems that I belong to that I was just never good enough. The things that I wanted to talk about, again, were made fun of. They were just like literally laughed at. I was told that I was embarrassing in their lives and they didn't want to be around me. And it was very sad. And so I can say that now, but like in the moment when those experiences happened, it was very sad to hear that someone was embarrassed to be around me. And I made them feel like they were, a joke of a person because of what I liked. Anyways, so these things are just like a starting point to think about. And the fun, cheesy thing that I used to do is I would say these in front of the mirror. Because again, if you don't take up space, you may or may not have a hard time looking at yourself in the mirror. So I'm just going to repeat that because this is something to think about. If you don't take up space, you may or may not have a hard time looking at yourself in the mirror and acknowledging what you want, what you need, what's important to you. So if you don't do that, I'm just going to gently encourage you to do it because it is uncomfortable and empowering. It's all about reclaiming your power. If you can slowly learn to look at yourself in the mirror with love, with compassion, you win. You got your love back for yourself. The other people didn't win. The dandelion world didn't destroy you. And that's my hope for everyone who needs that. Okay? So here's my thing about Bowen family system. So I actually Googled myself. I didn't Google myself. I Googled Bowen family systems and homeostasis. And I was actually the first hit video for Bing and for Google. So I'm important. Look, Mom, I'm important. I'm not a doctor, but look, I made it on the first hit for Google that nobody actually looks up except for me. So I just wanted to show this because some people are very visual or scientific or concrete in their own way. Googled, but with a big... Okay, so I binged first. I binged first because it's my default. Okay. And then I went on to Google and be like, what's the first hit for Google? So I got both. So anyways, so that's a video that I made a long time ago. I just wanted to revisit it because for me, homeostasis is a huge concept for systems in general. It could be social systems, psychological systems, family systems, just anything, cell body. So here's a cell body. Okay. People who took like science in high school, I think it's probably high school. Every part of the cell has a role to have the cell function and stay alive. Consider this your relationships too. Every relationship system that you're in has its own cell body. Just like a family system, colleagues at work, school function, friendships, relationships that are intimate, you could have a two-party system like your love relationship. That's its own cell. So in the beginning, there's a default state. one person or one part of the cell could be doing 85% of the hard labor to keep the cell alive. And then everyone else does something, right? And so if one person decides to change, let's say the person who's getting all the redirected energy of like being, I don't know, the black sheep or something, or being made fun of, if you decide that you want to change and all of a sudden your role changes, it is disrupting the whole system. Everyone else has to start adapting. I'm like, what the heck? They did something when I made fun of them, or they ignored me. They don't usually ignore me. That's weird. And so you catch them off guard, and so it's a ripple effect. Everyone else starts to be affected by your energy and your shifting too, which is pretty neat, right? And so when that happens, now it's a game of time, practice, and repetition. When you change, the thing of like homeostasis is someone else might come into place and replace your role, which is kind of funky. So my last talk that I gave was about over and under functioning in relationships. If you have one person who's under functioning or over functioning and now they want to change their role, everyone else is going to be like, wait a minute, this person's not doing all the work anymore. What is happening here? So one person over time might be like, you know what? I might have to step up. Does that make sense? Like, because there's this energy and expectations involved in a certain system. And after a while, if one person consistently wants to change and all of a sudden they're not doing their role anymore of being the sensitive, rejected person, everyone else will be like, they're caught off guard. They might try to make you stay the same, or they'll adapt and be like, okay, well, I guess they're not. I guess we just have to deal with it, right? And so with homeostasis is also this word of sabotage. You ever go home for the holidays and there's some people that make you feel so irritated and like you don't want to be who you actually are, and all of a sudden like, what the heck? Why are you like this? You know, like I remember I went home, I don't know how many years ago with it, but like there's this one family member and then they irritate me so much that I stopped talking. Like you can see, obviously I like talking about what I like to talk about, but if there's like a family member that irritates me, all of a sudden I go back to homeostasis of who I used to be in that system. Like I've grown, I've changed so much. All of a sudden I go back into the system and they sabotage me to go backwards in time. And so you consider that part of your life and realize that some things are out of your control. Some things are systemically related, and that's why it's important to get out of the system. Most of us grow when we're away from the people that hurt us, right? Like most of us grow when we're in a safe and supportive friendship. That's just logic, right? But at the same time, when we're in it, it's hard to see. So again, I'm just naming these things so you look out for what you want to look for instead of the things that are wrong, okay? So again, these people, like the people who sabotage us, they don't know any better. They're just like, they're stuck in their old ways, and whatever their reasons are, yeah, sooner or later, I hope that you can just like leave them be. You can grow and they can see you however you want, but like in your mind and in your life, you have so much potential to grow and be greater than you have been and constantly grow. Nose is itchy. So this is something that I explain to every client that I work with when they're changing. Nobody here is my client, but I'm going to share with you anyways because it's so important and powerful to visualize. I like visuals and like comparisons to help people see. Let's see, Olive says, I moved abruptly across the country 3 years ago. Definitely caught my family off guard and disrupted the system. It has helped me grow so much. I'm so proud of you for doing that. Like, W for you for doing what you needed to do to grow. And that's like the leap. I remember last time we talked about the leap of faith. Like, you have to have the leap to change something. It's scary as hell. Super scary to do something like that. But sometimes that's what we need to grow. Our family could have the best interests, the hopes for us to grow, but at the same time, they might not be able to offer us what we need just because we're on our own life path. We're just different in some way. Right on. That's so encouraging. Hold on. I don't know why, but like this light makes my nose so itchy, and I'm like, I just want to like cut off my nose. I don't literally want to cut off my nose, but like it's so itchy right now. I also abruptly moved across the country. It was exactly what the heck? What? You both? What? Wow. We have a bunch of rebels and brave people here. You followed your intuition, and that was the bravery needed to do what was best for you. Group hug. Let's go. W's in the chat. Let's go for being brave and taking leaps of faith. Let's go. So again, this is the framework that I use, again, for every single client. Doesn't matter if you're a parent that I'm consulting with or an individual. Change looks like this because it's messy and it's choppy and it's repetitive. I've moved across the country 3 times now. I really need to... This actually models what I'm trying to say next. So let's say that you're going to change something about your life, okay? So again, we're talking about taking up space. We're talking about being authentic to who you are. Move across the country and across the globe. Oh, you got one upped. You got one up by my mod. Let's go. I moved back home. I get a L in the chat. Anyways, so the pendulum is basically just like the positioning of where you're at, because this is what happens. When you're thinking of changing and you haven't done it yet, you start at one extreme end of the pendulum. When you finally decide to change, you let go of the pendulum and you swing to the extreme. Because compared to that is obviously the right choice. It's like, so the example I would use is like, you want to start exercising. If you want to start exercising, you're finally ready to exercise. You'll exercise every day to the extreme, doing all the sets, going to the gym, getting all the things, buying everything, enrolling in all the classes, getting all the books or whatever it is, however you learn and do best. It's extreme. But what happens with that? It's not sustainable, because in comparison, you have the opposite reference point of not doing that. Exactly. It leads to burnout. Exactly, my squishy. So because of that, what happens? When you lead to the burnout, you are going to crash. You get demoralized, you stop doing it because you went too far. You went from 0 to 100, and so you went back to the other side of the pendulum, which was doing nothing. Congratulations, you played yourself. And so what happens now? There's a time for working through the burnout, which is a waste of time. But all of us, raise my hand, all of us have been there where we go extreme. You go extreme because you're finally ready to change. You crash out, you burn, you have to rebuild yourself again. When you're finally ready, you go extreme again. And then what happens? You crash out and you burn again. And so you're constantly swinging. It's a constant swinging. Change typically can look like that. So here's my caveat to this. If you want to change how you behave, feel, or think about something, there's a gift of time and also going gradually, the build up. You start slow and put the building blocks up, but some of us, God, my nose. Okay. Some of us, I think, oh, you know what I think it is? It's the fluff on my microphone. It's going up my nose. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I'm like poking my nose with all this fluff because I wanted it to be cute. Okay. Anyways, so because of this pattern that we've identified now, this could go for anything too. Like for me with art supplies, I wanted to learn watercolor. I bought like hundreds of dollars worth of watercolor. I enrolled in all these online courses. I bought some books. I started going everywhere, getting fancy brushes. And then I had a setup. I used it. You're making me want to fiddle. Go ahead. Let's go fiddle with our nose. Let's go. So I did all this stuff with my art supplies. And then after that, I burnt out because it was too extreme. I went too far. And so I have some paint left, but I have no more brushes. I think I lost them when I moved. But again, it's the extreme that doesn't serve us. And for those of us who have ADHD, we have these explosive bursts of special interests, hyperfixation. We also get the stereotype that we never finish what we start. For the good and bad of it, it might be true. So I've always say for the ADHDers or anyone who like quote unquote fails what they start, just go back. Be kind to yourself, have compassion. Know that this is actually literally a form of change that people model. Like I got this from a therapist in 2009. He told me that this is just like a pendulum, changes like this, just be kinder to yourself. Speaking of that, I still have an illustration I commissioned from you. You still have that? Dude, I actually wanted to draw again, but Squishy, thank you for the 5 subs. Oh my gosh. Today is such a good day. Thanks, you guys. I feel so special and important and seen and valued. Thank you. I will not ever do commissions again, so you have like a special thing. But I will, whatchamacallit, I will draw more. I just don't have like my brushes because you are valuable. I feel important and loved. Okay, so yeah, just take a snapshot of this or go back to it later. This really is just affirming and makes you feel like you're not going crazy if you don't finish what you start, because literally it's a reframe. How can you slow down? How can you find a way to gradually build up to the foundation? And I don't know if anyone's watching an ad break. Probably not, because people are subscribed here. Yes, no. Ugh! No, this is so weird. No ads. I don't know why on whatever. Okay, not Facebook. Twitch. Okay, so these are just some things to try. This is a reminder. So whatever your history is, learning to take up space can be a very difficult task or concept to grasp. We can be very small and invisible in our schools, works, and interpersonal environments by default. But focus on the I position. Remember, like, look in the mirror. Just talk to yourself. Really give yourself that kindness of like, what helps me feel seen? Like, I like this. I like that. A lot of people don't want to hear what you like because, quote unquote, you're not important. You're small. I will talk about all the things that I like and you don't have a voice. And I've had people in my life who take up so much mental, emotional, physical space and they're just draining. It's like, that's their own work to figure out and do. But at the same time, you can disrupt the system and start taking up more space too. And they have to adjust. It's like, sorry, I'm another person in this world too. You have to take up less space. We can be used to focusing on the needs and wants of others, right? So this is kind of like, if there's trauma involved, I do always recommend going to trauma therapy, trying to figure out how to help regulate your nervous system. Very important work to do. But at the same time, you can find resources to do outside of like, okay, what's the role that you inherited in the system that you belong to? It can change. Like, just because you had that role in the family to survive and get by, that's one of many. You can have that role if you need to survive in that family, but outside of it, what else can you do? What else can you be? Just think about it. How else do you want to be seen? You have the rest of your life to cultivate many, many roles and practice naming your wants and experiences. Again, it's reclaiming agency and self-advocacy. A lot of us don't have this sense of, so locus of control is like, do I have control inside of myself? Is the world so uncontrollable that it's insane? Oh my God, stop flying. I'm gonna have to replace this fuzzy thing because like it's like flying in my face. So yeah, if you have the loved ones, talk about like, what do you like? Because a lot of people are just so quiet. They don't share anything about what they like. They'll just listen to other people talk. They'll be talked at, you know? But here's the thing, too. Some of us don't communicate with language or words. Some of us communicate through experience by doing things together, maybe sharing a meal. If that's the way you take up space, I give you permission to do more of that, too. Like, a lot of people just like the parallel play, doing something side by side with someone. Like, I love watching streams, so I would love to just like hang out and watch streams with people, or watching a video, or like just spending time together. That for me means my values, my interests matter too, which in turn means I matter. So it's like, how do you translate or define what taking up space means for you? There are all different ways to perceive it and define it, and just make sure that it's congruent with the people that you value, so you can feel valued too. So naming wants and needs. Again, it's a repetition at the end. I'm just wrapping it up. Your likes and your joys are super important. If you're not allowing the people in your life to honor the things that you love too, then you're not, you're not showing that your needs are important. Like, a lot of us who are caregiver roles, or kind of like silence ourselves to appease other people, constantly throwing things, all the gifts that we want for ourselves at other people. Sometimes it's important to allow people to love you. Let your friends care for you. Let your friends throw love at you, how they love you, and then be okay with asking them for the ways that you feel loved. It's a little bit of both. Because if your friends love you a certain way and you don't feel it, if they care for you and you're comfortable, start building that communication of like, hey, I would love it if you did this to support me. And if they love you, they're like, yeah, sure, totally. You know, it's a back and forth. So yeah, it's choosing the safe people. Who do you want to practice sharing these things with? It's bit by bit you can get there, but it's, again, who is a safe person to really do that. And for me, I started on Twitch. I started with sharing just in like random chats, like, oh, I like this game. That for me is a big step, because I'm used to being made fun of liking the things that I like. So even if I told people like on a Twitch stream, like, I like Fortnite too, like, oh, that was a good game. That for me was a big step, because I used to hide the games that I played. I used to hide everything that I liked, because I felt like this stuff and this part of me was not important. I did not take up space. And that's why I think Twitch is such a powerful community, because a lot of us who are misunderstood get to just take up space and exist. It's really cool. And it's not just Twitch, though. It's our fandoms. So when you cater to the needs of others for so long, sometimes you don't know what you want, need, or like. There's this fuzz, just like on the mic, around this part of your identity. So going back to the I position, you have actions and perspective shifts, not just speaking. Your mindset shifts, moving relational energy in the system. So it's totally normal and takes care, safety, and time to figure out. Fandoms and communities you belong to can help mirror innate values, dreams, and strengths that might be inside. Let me see. Is that Tara? It's Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Cloudy McDoom. And he is a content creator for the Final Fantasy community, but also he streams Final Fantasy 14. And he has this series on YouTube called The Squall House. So he's a video editor, and he just makes funny stuff. And one day he had all of us show up in front of the Squall House, and he took pictures. And so I have a character. It's a lot to learn, because my frame of reference is World of Warcraft. But it's a beautiful game. I love the add-ons that you can do for the characters, and it's just beautiful. I just wish I had more time to learn. I wish I started like 5-7 years ago, because there's so much to catch up on. I feel like I don't like feeling rushed to play the game and learn the story. So maybe one day I'll be back, but like in general, I love the community. They're very kind and supportive, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Cloudy. And then this is a common pathway and reason for how many sensitive and misunderstood people love cosplay, video games, and role-playing like Dungeons and Dragons. So here's another thing you could try too. You can make a Pinterest board or a vision board of all the things you wish and hope for, including the strength to speak up and take up space. Oh my gosh, I didn't block it out. That didn't work. Why did it move? Yeah, about that. Anyways, I'll have to like watch the ads. Anyways, so I encourage the Pinterest board and oh my god, I'm so stupid. So like there's a huge component of your self-empowerment in play. So if you don't know how to express yourself or take up space, my big push always, play a game. Video games, sports, be playful. That's a part of you that should always be nurtured. Always. We lose ourselves as we grow up. We think that playing is for children only. We think we're inferior or less mature in some way if we're playing. Nope. I think it's the other way around. Like, you lost yourself, you lost your way if you stop playing. You lost yourself if you think you're too serious to play. Something seriously wounded or blocked out if you don't allow yourself to have fun in this life, because this life is either too long or too short for some of us. You never know what's going to happen. So it's important very much to be playful while being serious and, getting your responsibilities met. So lastly, I will say that it's important to follow play therapists, neurodiversity affirmative geek and gamer affirmative professionals, and art therapists, because there's, again, so we talked about like what's wrong with me and how do I heal. That's the aspect of like the beauty of healing. There's so many different ways to heal depending on your personality, the way you view healing in general, and the professional that you're working with. So if you find a not so great fit, I encourage you to try again, even though I know money is a big issue. This stuff is costly, but overall, it is very much worth it. Even if you don't work with them in one-to-one situation, I hope and really encourage therapists, if you ever watch this or hear about me, to make content to empower and educate the community. Because again, we cannot help everyone, but we can at least find ways to impact in small ways that ripple. So if you are one of these types of helpers, I always encourage people to make content, because again, the goal is not to have the one-on-one sessions for everyone. That's impossible. If we can help more people, we heal the world, literally, and that makes the world a better place where people aren't like hurting each other with their unhealed wounds, which is a big goal, big plus. Oh, that's my thing. I'm done.